I was just out collecting some water for my friends. They were back in the camp. But I was collecting water when the horror came upon me. It was the likes of which could only be made by the devil. It was a mop of hair, cut perfectly even for 360 degrees. Some would call it a bowl cut, but I call it a sin, an abomination. When I saw that black semi-sphere of hair, I thought my time upon this earth was done. Nobody believes me when I tell them I saw something so unnatural. And they believe me even less when I tell them the creature's name was Marlowe. And as unlikely as it may sound, I now count Marlowe among my friends. You want to hear the tale? Then let's get to it. A wonderful moment that I think the world was waiting for happened in episode 4. And that is Marlowe joining the team. Of all the MPs in the world that could have stumbled upon Armin, Marlowe was the best one. And with Annie's comments at the end of season 1 about Marlowe's principles reminding her of Aaron, this turn of events seems natural. Other than hairstyle choices, Marlowe seems cut from the same cloth as Pixis and Erwin, with his first and only loyalty being not to any leader or branch of the service, but to humanity, and to what is right. But Marlowe doesn't just get accepted into Levi's crew with open arms. I think their distrust of a quickly deserting member of the military police is totally understandable. So Marlowe, and by extension Hitch, well, they get tested by Jean. And the way Jean conducts this test makes me think he's doing it of his own initiative. Levi doesn't seem to be aware of Jean's plan. You know, Levi first instructs Sasha to deal with Marlowe and Hitch when Jean asks if he can do it. But Levi being Levi, I'm sure he understood Jean was up to something. So he agreed to let Jean do the honors. And when Jean threatens to kill Marlowe, I didn't know what was going on at first. I thought maybe Jean had flipped out and that he was a different person than I thought. But Marlowe kept his cool, and he proved himself. And Hitch, well, she whacked Jean a few good times with a rather large tree branch. So I have no doubts about Marlowe's dedication to Levi's cause, but I'm still just a little hesitant to trust Hitch. I feel like she could be one to betray the squad. She seems to be pretty motivated by her own self-interest, and not terribly principled on what we've seen from her so far. But a bit earlier, Levi revealed Annie's true identity to Hitch, and I kind of wonder, I ask myself, does this impact her? Does this information that Annie was a Titan tip the scales one direction or the other with Hitch? We know that Hitch was upset by all the collateral damage in Stohess, but finding out Annie was largely responsible for it, does this make her feel a new kinship with the Scouts and what they're trying to do? Or does it make her just want to double down on looking out for number 1? I don't really know yet. Newspaper reporters are introduced into this world, and we see a young, enthusiastic reporter that seems inspired by the principles of journalism. And then he's paired with this older guy that seems to be in the pocket of the military police and the central government. And I really like seeing how this story plays out, and we get to see the value and triumph of a free and honest press. And I know the real world press gets plenty of criticism, but it's nice to see this fictional press confront corruption and emerge with its virtue intact. I'll also be really interested to see if the press plays into future storylines now that it's been established as a force of change here in these 3 episodes. And in our subplot with the reporters, we learn that this ODM buckshot system is top secret. You know, the system that Kenny and his crew use. Which is interesting. And it also explains that the population as a whole would probably disapprove of a weapon system that's useless against Titans, but super effective against humans. You even hear the military police guy, he has concerns that the weapons could be turned against the MPs if they fail to adequately toe the government line. But as these episodes unfold, we will see more and more precisely why the government is so much more concerned with pacifying humans than it is with the Titan threat. I mean, in theory, they have the key to controlling Titans in their hands, but extreme violence might be their primary means for pacifying the humans. Flegel becomes a bigger part of the story in these episodes, and, by the way, If there's ever a name that says your mama probably didn't like you, it's Flegel. And if you're watching this video and your name happens to be Flegel, I'm sorry. But Flegel gets the police to reveal treachery to this hidden crowd, and then Flegel comes out with the crowd. They confront the military police, of course with the help of Hanji and Moblet, and he declares himself Boss Reeves. He really has a triumphant moment when he sits on an MP's head, and he declares himself the protector of the people of Trost. And you'll never be able to convince me that Flegel didn't take the opportunity to toot in that guy's ear hole while he was sitting there. That, my friends, is how you exert dominance. It works wonders in contract negotiations. Don't believe me? Try it. Actually, you probably should never do that, unless it's like a sibling or something. It's okay to do that to your brother. A captured MP says that Kenny's last name is Ackerman, and I wasn't sure whether or not to believe it at first, but it appears to be true. And Levi, when he's talking with Mikasa, he says he never knew Kenny's last name, and I think I believe Levi. I also don't think Levi knows his own last name. Just the way he acts here, I don't think he knows he's Levi Ackerman. He tells Mikasa that maybe she's related to Kenny, but he never says anything about himself. And then he talks about this Ackerman family trait. He asks Mikasa if she felt strength unlock inside of her after her first kill. And she admits she did. Then Levi tells her the same thing happened to Kenny. Levi also says the same thing happened to him. But he doesn't say anything about being an Ackerman. And honestly, in this moment, he seems to be a little slow to figure it out. Though you'd think it'd be kind of obvious here, right? Now, I'm eagerly awaiting the moment that Levi either figures out or admits he knows that his last name is Ackerman. I feel more confused about Levi's last name now than I ever did before I knew what it was. In episode 41, it gives us an info card about Chancellery. And this Chancellery is an organization that kind of runs the state, and I get the idea that they also run King Fritz too. And Erwin faces the Chancellery. He faces the king and these assembled nobles. And he asserts that civil war is inevitable if Wall Maria isn't recaptured. But to me, I think the Chancellery, the nobles, the king, I think they expect civil war. And they want to give themselves the strongest possible position for a civil war rather than trying to avoid it. And Erwin suspects they have a plan, and so do I. Though I'm not entirely sure what it is, I've got some ideas. I wonder if weaponized titans are part of their plan. It's gotta be, right? Like, that's why they're desperate to have Eren. And also, the fact that maybe they plan to use titans as weapons, well, that would explain why they need to get rid of the troops most capable of fighting titans, wouldn't it? And during Erwin's trial, Pixis springs his trap. Or really, I would say it's more of a test than a trap. I would say it's actually pretty close to what Jean does with Marlowe and Hitch. But he has his assistant, Anka. She storms into the room and announces that Titans have breached Wall Rose. And Pixis orders an evacuation of all the citizens from Wall Rose into the safety of Wall Senna. But the nobles, they stand up and forbid it, and they order the gates sealed. And this is done in plain sight of all the soldiers. There's no hiding it because it's done in the moment. And some important members of the military police, well, they're from Wall Rose, and they have family in Wall Rose. So they quickly turn against the Chancellery here. And this ruse exposes the self-serving motivations of the nobles here. And in fact, it proves the nobles themselves to be in violation of Clause 6 of the Humanity Charter, which is the very charter they're putting Erwin on trial for here. And the nobles also confess that the power, which we know as Eren, is being held just waiting for a vessel. So this is a confession that they have Eren, even though Erwin is on trial for hiding Eren from them. It's a great ruse, it works really well, and I have to hand it to Erwin. He got the bloodless coup he was hoping for. Though it really is Pixis who held the fate of the world in the balance here, Pixis not committed to either Erwin or the nobles blindly, but letting this test tell him what the right path is to take. I love Pixis. And Zachary arrives on the scene. Premier Zachary arrives and throws his position in with the dissenters. And I have to say, my initial assessment of Zachary, well, my initial impression of Zachary fell well short of the full measure of the man. The guy's actually insane. He doesn't really care if the coup is right or wrong. He just wants to torture the nobles. He's kind of sadistic. I'm sure there's a good reason, but I wasn't expecting it. I thought he was like this fair and just grandfatherly type that I could trust. But it turns out he wants to introduce this world to the butt chug torture. And I gotta say, he hates the nobles. He refers to them as pigs. He puts this guy upside down and feeds him through a funnel in his backside. And I really thought I would get through all 4 seasons of Attack on Titan without ever using the phrase butt chug. But I was wrong. I cannot predict this show. I do think Zachary confesses to putting himself and his own desires ahead of humanity in this moment, and this does make him different from Pixis and Erwin. And Pixis does make it clear that his loyalty is not to any one person or any one government or any one group, but to humanity as a whole. And I like that Pixis is not blindly loyal to the government, and that he's also not blindly loyal to Erwin, because a lot of atrocities can come from blind loyalty, as human history has shown us in the past. But I do want to say that I'm not certain Pixis has a full, proper assessment of just who Erwin is. Because at one point, Pixis says to Erwin, "Unlike you, I'm willing to die for humanity." But I think as viewers, I think we've all seen firsthand that Erwin is prepared to pay the ultimate price for what he thinks will save humanity. So I don't know why Pixis feels this way or why he's saying this. But Erwin does have a bit of a personal crisis here. He asks if maybe trading half of humanity for a continued existence is better than the current course, which may result in humanity going extinct. And to me, this sounds kind of like a Thanos sentiment, doesn't it? Like, kill half of everything so the other half has a better life? I don't know. But Erwin is concerned humanity is now on a path more dangerous than it had been on before. And I want to know, why is Erwin so concerned here? I don't know that I have a full measure of it. I mean, it was always looking bad for humanity, but now maybe he's worried that this royal plan, as deceitful and treacherous as it may have been, might still have ensured some kind of existence. Very similar to some of the revelations that come at the end of the first Mistborn book, if you're a fan of those novels. And I feel like maybe something like that's about to unravel. We'll just have to see. Erwin also says something else that personally I really like and kind of agree with. Erwin says that humanity will only know peace when there's one or less humans left. And I just kind of feel like humanity's ability to squabble with itself knows no bounds. And if there were only 2 people on Earth, and I was one of them, I would hate that other guy. As a result of this coup d'etat that's perpetrated by Erwin, Zachary, and Pixis, well, the Scouts are no longer outlaws, which is good for them. But I kind of wanted to watch them on the run a little bit longer. We also see the newspapers printing all the details, which is that triumph of virtue I was talking about earlier, so that's nice to see. And when Hanji reunites with Levi, she has a book that Erwin gave her that explains some details about the Reiss family. And from that book, they deduce Aaron's location. But also suspicious to Hanji and Levi is just how quickly this chapel on the Reiss property was destroyed and rebuilt. And we also learn that Reiss lost his whole family in this chapel, but Rod Reiss, he was just conveniently away when it happened. I think that's a little suspicious because in these 3 episodes I find out I was totally wrong about Rod Reiss, and I feel so bad about carrying on about what a nice guy he was in some of my previous reviews. Because it starts to look pretty clear that Lord Reiss arranged for the murder of Historia's mother, and that it was all just kind of like theater to win her over to him and to win her loyalty. Hanji herself even says, I don't think it was out of a paternal instinct that he went looking for her. And we'll find out about a genetic trait that means he really needed one of his children to be loyal to him. And I start to wonder here after I've watched these episodes for the 2nd time, and I'm thinking through it on the 3rd time. I wonder if just maybe Frida, his daughter, wasn't fully in agreement with whatever Rod's plans were. And maybe he wanted to get rid of Frida. Maybe he wanted to replace Frida. But also in this theater of killing Krista's mother, Historia's mother, I think he needed to scare her into becoming Krista and in turn make her believe she needed to be sent to the cadets for a reason. I suspect he wanted her to be tied in with Aaron in order to get him in the very position he finds himself in during these episodes. I think this was all a clever ploy just to get Aaron down into that cavern where he is right now when I'm watching the show. And Aaron is in this crystal cavern. Some beautiful art here. I love the look of this cavern. And he's all chained up on what really looks like a sacrificial altar. And he's faced with Krista. We learn here what the Titan power of the Reiss family is. And it's not just the coordinate power, but there's also this power to affect memory. And Ervin's father had a theory about altering the collective memory of the citizenry, and I speculated about all kinds of ways it could be done. But I guess now we know the secret. It's a Reiss family ability. And I suspect that to work on a large scale, maybe it takes two. That's why he couldn't do it by himself and he needs Krista so badly. Or maybe there's something about the female part of the family that's different from the male part, and that's why he needed a female heir. That may be part of the reason Reiss needed Historia so badly that he kept her hidden away. It might be why he had, like in quote marks, a spare child hiding out on a farm. And Historia was maybe some kind of designated survivor or an emergency plan in case he couldn't count on Frida. And I'm also beginning to have some guesses about how the whole false king mechanism works. I think the Reiss family may have planned this whole scheme. You think back to what Ervin said about there can never be peace so long as two humans exist. And no dynasty lasts forever. So the Reiss family installs a puppet king, erases everyone's memory. Then when tensions inevitably rise to the point of revolution, the Reisses have a sovereign position to be installed, and then they repeat the whole thing over again. Based on the timeline the show gives us, I think they probably operate on about a 100-year cycle. And we know some families are immune to the memory power. So they're installed as nobles. They're given land, money, and power in return for their cooperation. For the most part, we learn there's two families that won't go along with this. One of them, the Ackermans. The other one, the Eastern clan. But I do fully believe that the Reiss family is still secretly running things from the shadows. I believe Rod is the true king, and that Fritz is this puppet that's set up to be a fall guy. It makes perfect sinister sense to me. Let the public have their revolution every century and be able to step in as their hopeful, new, heroic king. And I also feel like it's the Reiss family itself that leaks the necessary documents to key individuals at just the right time so it can appear that the Reiss royal line has been discovered. But I think it's all a plan. And Historia and Rod seem to work together to unlock memories in Aaron. And something interesting here is that he appears not only to have the powers of the Titan he ate, but memories as well, going back at least 2 levels of Titan. And this act also unlocks Historia's memories of her sister Frida. And Rod acts surprised that Historia has this flood of memories, but I think he wanted her to have these memories at this moment in time because it could really drive a wedge between herself and Aaron. In this rush of memories, we see that Aaron's father, Grisha, was also a Titan shifter. And when Grisha transformed, he was a pretty hairy Titan. I think I can see some family resemblance in Grisha's Titan form and the form of the Beast Titan. And I'm still sticking to my theory from the previous review that Grisha is the Beast Titan's son, and that Ervin is actually a Jaeger, and that Ervin's father is the Beast Titan. I know that's a lot of convoluted thinking, but it ties all my suspicions together because Ervin's father just looks so much like the human form of the Beast Titan. And at the time, I thought the coordinate ability may be a Jaeger family trait instead of a Reiss family trait. But this episode showed me the coordinate power wasn't something that should tie the Jaeger family to the Beast Titan. But in the exact same scene, they showed that Grisha's Titan form looks like a slightly less beastly Beast Titan. And that got me back to square one thinking that the Beast Titan has to be related to Grisha, but also has to be Ervin's father. So I'm sticking with an idea that doesn't quite require me to let go of either one of those things. If one or both of those theories are proven wrong as the show progresses, I'll re-examine it, but I'll probably think there's still enough textual evidence to lead people down that path. I mean, one of the two physical similarities could possibly just be a red herring, intentionally placed to kind of prolong the mystery, but maybe not. But Titan Grisha is the one who attacks and kills the Reiss family. And in the process, he eats Frida Reiss, and he takes her coordinate power. And I also noticed in this sequence that Frida transforms by biting her hand, just like Aaron. And the other Titan shifters seem to stab their hands, or Annie had like that ring with the barb on it. But Frida and Aaron have this in common, that they bite their hands. And I wonder if this is like a royal line trait, or maybe Aaron does this because of some sort of genetic memory he got because he now carries Frida's power. All in all, I think it's a nice detail. But why would Grisha do this? Why would Grisha kill the Reiss family? Well, if he really is the Beast Titan's son, like I think he is, and the Beast Titan really is the teacher, like I think he is, then Grisha may have carried on his research and discovered the Reiss family secret. Once Grisha knew this secret, he might have thought the best thing to do for humanity was to end the Reiss family cycle. And what better way to do it than to steal the Reiss family's power? But just maybe, Rod Reiss wanted all of his family except Historia to be out of the picture, and maybe he manipulated Grisha in some kind of a way to get this result. And the way Historia's mother treated her, it makes me wonder if she really was Historia's mother at all, or just some woman who was forced to pose as her mother. But the bigger part of this revelation, and maybe the more important part, is that Grisha fed himself to Eren, all to pass on the accumulated powers that he had to his son. Some of my thoughts were clarified in this sequence, and some were contradicted. I thought that after getting the Titan serum, it required a trauma to become a Titan. But with Eren, it looks like the injection alone causes a pretty immediate transformation. Also, it addresses my idea of power consolidation, with Grisha being a shifter who eats another shifter, and where there were once 2, there are now only 1. So the number of shifters isn't fixed like some people suggested. And once that power is consolidated, I can't conceive of a way it could be separated again. One of my takeaways from all this is that I no longer think Connie is a secret Titan. I also had mentioned Ymir's physical change, specifically her teeth after eating a Titan shifter. And here, in these memories, Eren's initial Titan form looks fairly different from the one that he currently has. After chomping his pop, it seems like his own appearance changed. But what I want to know going forward is how is Eren going to react to realizing that he's a dad chomp Titan? Like, why did Grisha need Eren to chop him in the first place? Why couldn't Grisha just go do himself whatever it is he's hoping Eren will do here? Also, will Eren see the mom chomp Titan differently now? Like now will he maybe have some understanding that the chomping action can happen without the person underneath the Titan wanting it to? He's a dad chomp Titan. How hypocritical would it be for him to hate the mom chomp Titan like he used to? And then how will Historia respond to knowing Eren's father chomped the only person who was ever kind to her as a child? And if Historia and Eren become enemies, if this does drive a wedge between them, who will Erwin and the scouts support here? Will they support Historia to put her on the throne, or will they support Eren and whatever he might be able to do to save humanity? Will Eren decide the only way to stop this Titan menace is for him to eat all the Titan shifters so he's the only one left and can kind of rule as some sort of benevolent dictator? And I say that because I'm still waiting for Eren to in some way be tempted by the dark side. We also finally learn the Ackerman family history. They were bodyguards for the king, and they have this bloodlust family trait that makes them the awesomest fighters. That explains why Levi and Mikasa are awesome fighters, and Kenny as well. And Levi's mother was Kenny's sister. And according to Kenny, she was working in a brothel when Levi was conceived. So theoretically, Levi's father could be almost anybody. Some folks in the comments have suggested that, like Mikasa, Levi has the physical traits of the Eastern clan, so maybe his father was from the East and went to a brothel and met his mother. People also told me Levi's 35 years old. That is incredible, because darn if he doesn't look good for 35. Like, I thought he was maybe 25 tops. I looked pretty rough by the time I was 35. But we find out Kenny killing all of those military police, it might have been done to protect his family, because his family was persecuted. So maybe it was sort of in self-defense and he's not really the serial killer I thought he was. And at least one member of his crew seems to really believe in him, so maybe he has his own plan for saving humanity. So I guess I'll just have to keep watching and find out. I'm proud of you for watching anime, and I'll talk to you soon.